You've may have heard of the gentleman from Canada known as the Prince of Pot, Marc Emery. Uh, his name is Marc Emery, and he basically rose to fame in the marijuana industry. To be quite honest, he was an activist. Then he started to sell bongs and other paraphernalia, and he graduated to selling seeds. He sold seeds in person at a shop in Vancouver, and then eventually he started selling a mail order. He became very rich doing that. And ever since then, the U.S. authorities have had it in for him. So that's a quick overview of who Marc Emery is. And like a couple of videos I've already done before, I'm going to do this one in a way that if you don't want to sit here for 20 minutes or a half hour and watch this whole video, I'm just going to summarize what happened to Marc Emery in the news, current update, and then I'm going to go ahead and read some history about Marc Emery out of Wikipedia for those of you who never heard of him. So I'm just going to read this from CBC News. I believe there's one more article. Yeah, there's another article out of Montreal Gazette that has a lot of Marc Emery quotes. I'll read those. So let's go. This article is called "Canada's Prince of Pot Marc Emery Released After Arrest in Montreal Marijuana Shop Raids." The man known as Canada's Prince of Pot says he's feeling good after spending a night in Montreal jail. Marc Emery, who operates an illegal chain of marijuana shops under the name of Cannabis Culture, was arrested along with 9 others on Friday evening during a series of raids by Montreal police. Police were targeting six new Cannabis Culture locations that had just opened the day before. Emery, who was working at the store on Mont Royal Avenue, is now charged with drug trafficking, possession for the purpose of trafficking, and conspiracy. Now, I guess after he got out of jail, he said that they didn't actually charge him with the conspiracy charge. Emery was released after posting $5,000 bond and is prohibited from consuming cannabis, entering places that produce or sell cannabis, or communicating with anyone linked to Cannabis Culture operations in Montreal. Pretty stiff. It's unclear if the stores will reopen, he added, because he cannot be in the province and authorities are pressuring the landlords to keep the locations closed. On Saturday, Montreal police officers were seen checking the properties to ensure that they're not in operation. Emery said he was looking forward to fighting the charges in court. He also took a moment to denounce the actions of the Montreal mayor, Denis Coderre. I'm not French, so I don't know if I pronounced that right or not. Far be it from me to actually pronounce anybody's name right or really care. So anyway, the mayor's behavior is despicable, Marc said. If the mayor of Montreal wants to keep his city backward, behind, and full of oppression, then that is the statement he just made to the world. Cannabis Culture operates shops in 12 locations across British Columbia and Ontario. On Thursday, 6 new locations opened up in Montreal, and 4 more were slated to open by the end of December. In an earlier interview, Emery's wife Jody said the locations in Montreal will be operated by a franchise. Jody Emery was also arrested on Friday, but released later that day with no charges. If you didn't know, Canada is slated to legalize marijuana in the spring. Who knows what's going on with that? We keep hearing that every year. It didn't happen last year. Trudeau famously is really liberal, but he has some questionable things going on. Like these raids are nothing new. There's been raids in Toronto going on ever since Trudeau got elected. That's basically the ones I've heard the most about. But if you go to these other places, these other major hubs, the only place that I haven't seen a plethora of raids is Vancouver. Alright, so they go on. Police spokesman Danielle Lacourziere said that of the 10 people arrested, there were 6 men and 4 women who were charged, ages ranging from 18 to 58 years old. Money, equipment, and more than 18 kilograms of marijuana were seized during the raids. The others arrested with Emery were released on a promise to appear. The situation is nothing new for Marc Emery, who has been arrested numerous times over the years for his refusal to abide by laws concerning cannabis in Canada and in the United States. The Canadian government is expected to table legislation legalizing cannabis in the spring, but current federal laws still prohibit the sale of recreational marijuana. Mayor Dennis Cordair told CBC Saturday that instead of putting energy into this stunt, the Emerys should be concentrating on how they'll operate legally in the future. Quote, "We know that legalization will happen, so let's all put our energy in the process itself, and during that time, we have a law to respect, period." Quote, "Justin Trudeau, Philip Couillard, everybody, we're on the same page," said Cordair. "We have to respect the current law, period, and police are there to apply the law." Now that's just ridiculous. I mean, the police are probably the ones behind all this, because they're sick of this marijuana legalization bullshit. Because quite frankly, it's not that they have less to do or whatever. It's that it takes a great deal of authority out of their work. They no longer can treat you like a complete piece of shit, less than dog, or even less than insect, just because you got caught with some marijuana. They can no longer raid your whole house and take down your whole, take your whole life out, take all your possessions and, just go ahead and do whatever they want while they're in your house. Like we heard these raids in Michigan where they took the daughter's graduation money out of the envelopes. They went and opened up every envelope and took the money out. So this is just something that the police are, they see the future of their job not being as fun, I guess, because they don't have all this extra authority to just start stomping on people's constitutional rights over something that, that in most police's eyes, probably marijuana is bad, I guess, because they're not exposed to this kind of positive propaganda, if you will, that the people that are for marijuana are. It's, everybody knows that these days everybody's in a bubble, and these bubbles are, they work in negative ways to keep people misinformed about things, and police are no exception. They get into this bubble of enforcement and prohibition, and nothing can penetrate that bubble. You can't tell them, oh, marijuana's medicine. They got so many arguments against that it's whatever. But anyway, that's it for that article. We're going to go into this Montreal Gazette real quick and just run these quotes off. Marc Emery, the so-called Prince of Pot, remains defiant about flouting pot laws in Canada despite his arrest in Montreal on Friday. Now, just like the mayor over here in Montreal, there's a lot of people out there, even marijuana activists, who are questioning Marc Emery's tactics, I guess you could say. And I get that. There's all these people that act like we've been fighting this fight and we had all these wins and all these victories, and why do we want to take that and throw it all out the window because someone wants to act like the wild Wild West again with this. I don't even know, to be honest. It's not like Marc Emery's hurting for money or he wants to corner the market before anybody else or whatever. He don't have to worry about that. He made like a big ton of money, like 20 million maybe more, when he sold all those seeds on mail order all over the world. Marc Emery's not hurting for money, so I don't know why he jumped the gun on it. It wouldn't have been for that reason. Marc Emery's like a lot of other activists in the old guard, the marijuana activists that brought us to where we are today. And what I mean by that is they were willing to get arrested. They were willing to go the distance and be the martyr. You got your John Sinclair, who sat on the Capitol building in Lansing with 2 joints and famously got 10 years for that. And you got, I don't know, D'Angelo. You got all these people that were willing to make take the risk that no one else would take. And that was back in their day, and then now today they did it again. D'Angelo opening one of the biggest medical marijuana dispensaries in the world, pretty much, at Harborside, and a medical marijuana college. And then you got John Sinclair, who, if you lived in Detroit like I did at the time when medical marijuana became a thing, he was floating around an idea of opening up like a Amsterdam-style cafe slash, coffee shop where, open mic or whatever, modeled after what he'd seen because he lives in Amsterdam. And he didn't do it because obviously the risk was too high or whatever. He was trying to do that in the Eastern Market in Detroit. And now you have Marc Emery, another old school activist who, I don't know, he could have just waited around till recreational was legal and opened up his shops and went about his business and rode his wave of fame into the sunset. Or as it fizzles out, as you say, because there's, Snoop Dogg's probably more famous than Marc Emery. Of course he is. But did Snoop Dogg do more for legalization of marijuana? Did Snoop Dogg, put himself out there as a martyr for marijuana and get arrested for international crimes of selling marijuana? So anyway, we got a couple of quotes here. Let's start with this one. People are saying I got charged with conspiracy, but my charges don't say that on my paper, he told the Montreal Gazette on a telephone interview from Toronto. And it says, Emery is not sure what to make of the conspiracy argument. Quote, here's the thing about the whole marijuana industry. About 250,000 people in this country produce marijuana, sell it, and distribute it. It's one giant, vast conspiracy, really. I mean, for me to sell pot in a store in Toronto, for example, it probably involves 15 employees, 25 growers, 7 to 10 brokers, shippers, deliverers. I mean, everything in the marijuana industry is a conspiracy. And that's true. Despite Friday's police raid, Emery said the Montreal stores will probably remain in operation. Quote, as far as I know, they're not shut down at all on Saturday. They were given a joint out to anyone who came in and signed the petition to present to the mayor. So I'm not sure they were going to shut down. Although both Emery and his wife Jody were arrested in Montreal, Marc Emery said he enjoyed his brief experience in the city. Quote, I had a great time, he said. I shook hands and met hundreds of people. I was so impressed. I don't know if there is anywhere else in the world I'd get hundreds of people lining up for hours at a time with freezing temperatures outside just so they could participate in the experience. And this was a place where they were going to, for the first time, buy recreational marijuana. Let's kind of like get a perspective of what was going on. He was going to open these stores. He opened the stores. People lined up around the corner in freezing temperatures for hours. They were standing there waiting to get in. And then when they opened it, it was only open for a few hours before the cops raided it. And before it was even raided, Marc Emery called the other stores and told everybody involved that, hey, the police called me and they said they're going to come and conduct some raids. So if anybody don't want to be involved in that, you might as well, hit the road. As for Emery causing quite the commotion in Montreal, he said, that's my job. And that's basically what I just said. Like, he wouldn't be happy with just riding it out, with his legal marijuana shops, and he didn't make one final stand against government oppression, basically, And okay, now this clip's already kind of long, like 13 and 14 minutes. But in case you didn't already know about Marc Emery, I think it's important. And I don't usually do educational clips and educational stories or whatever unless they're really important to the news, like the CBD story with the kids. But this is kind of he's an important figure overall in the marijuana story. Let's just say that, if nothing else, because let's give credit where credit is due. Nobody put their finger into authorities' chest harder than Marc Emery. So this is all from Wikipedia. A lot of people are talking shit about Marc right now. A lot. I mean, let's face it, a lot of activists, a lot of would-be people that are about to try to open up their own marijuana stores. And I don't know if it's just because they don't understand that when you're Marc Emery, you got to do what Marc Emery does. And that's just what he did. I don't think it's going to do anything. I mean, what are you talking about? Oh, he just ruined it for everybody else. No, he didn't. You're still going to go fill out your paperwork and pay your assessment fees and your application fees and do your thing. He didn't stop nothing. They're still going to go vote for this legalization in when it thaws out or whatever, and it's gonna happen probably. Who knows, man? Canada's been weird ever since, like, I don't know, 2000. All right, let's just go through this. I'm going to read. I pulled some pertinent things, and this is basically just telling you about his history with marijuana, as in just overall. So, Emery moved to Vancouver, British Columbia in March 1994 and founded a store called Hemp BC on July 7th. Now, if you ever heard of BC Bud, pretty much that's where that term really came from. I mean, I'm sure people called BC Bud before, but he had several strains that were BC Bud, and then BC Bud was the actual seed company, or one of them. So anyway, I'm going to keep reading. His store played a major part in expanding Canada's then very small and underground industry in cannabis-related paraphernalia, such as bongs and pipes. Even though they're illegal to sell and promote, he still did it, and that was one of his first, like, thumb to the nose. In late 94, a court challenge sponsored by Emery convinced an Ontario judge to overturn a Canadian prohibition on marijuana and drug-related literature, making it legal for High Times magazine and magazine grow books to be sold in Canada once more. That probably played a huge role in his seed success. I know I bought one of those books. In December of 95, Emery began selling marijuana seeds in late 94 after attending High Times Cannabis Cup and being inspired by a Dutch seed store named Sensi Seeds. In early 1995, he launched Cannabis Canada magazine, which was renamed Cannabis Culture magazine in 1998. In December 95, Emery and his seed business were featured on the front page of Wall Street Journal, leading to a deluge of media attention. 1 month later, in January of 1996, Hemp BC was raided by Vancouver police, who seized Emery's bongs and seeds and charged him with selling marijuana seeds and promoting vaporizers. He was later convicted and given a $2,200 fine, $500 for each of the 4 counts of selling marijuana seeds, and $200 for vaporizer promotion. Emery reopened his store the next day and continued to sell paraphernalia and marijuana seeds. By 97, he had expanded his store to include a grow store, a legal assistance center, and a cannabis cafe, which featured a custom-built vaporizer built into every table. On October 12, 1997, Marc Emery was featured on CNN Impact in an episode called Canada Cannabis. The announcer referred to Emery as the Prince of Pot, and the label stuck. This drew major international media attention to Emery and his Hemp BC store once more. The Vancouver police returned on December 16, 1997, once again emptying the store of seeds, paraphernalia, as well as taking the vaporizers out of the cafe. I mean, literally out of the tables. Police claim to have seized about $1.6 million worth of marijuana-related merchandise, plus tens of thousands of marijuana seeds. Little did they know that was your millions right there. Tens of thousands of seeds? Come on. Emery was jailed but not charged with any seed or paraphernalia offenses, but he was charged and convicted of assaulting a police officer because he spat on a police officer while they were forcibly removing protesters from in front of the store. Actually, they were customers, and the police were assaulting them first, so yeah. It was kind of a back and forth and whatever. So this is all kind of funny. In case you don't notice this guy is rising to fame selling seeds. I mean, how many kingpin drug dealers do you know of in your neighborhood that got out of the hood selling seeds? It's pretty funny stuff. But I mean, it ain't funny if you think about it. Seed packs are they're still expensive. Back then you could pay anywhere from $100 to $1,000, and if it was some kind of an elite strain, you could pay up to $2,000 to $5,000 for a 10-pack of seeds. These days it's a little different. The market is a little more open because there's so many breeders, but it's still easy. It's still not that hard to come up with a strain that people really enjoy and make some money off of seeds. But the idea that you could literally make millions of dollars selling seeds is still kind of one I can't wrap my head around. I mean, I know it's probably not that hard, but wow. Anyway. So he was jailed but not charged with any seed or paraphernalia offense. Blah, blah, blah. We did that. Emery reopened Hemp BC the next day again. And like you said, this time, he ain't even going to shut down. I mean, the ones that got raided might open up or they might not, depending on if the landlords let them. But as far as the the ones that didn't shut down all over Canada, well, all over Ontario, I think one was in Toronto or something like that. Anyway, the other ones are still open. They ain't even gonna not open tomorrow or whatever. He just got out of jail today, by the way, or I guess that's yesterday by now. Sorry, people. And sometimes it gets pretty late at night before I can do one of these clips. And if you're wondering about the Zoom back here, I'm just at my computer desk. Usually when I film live, I'm just sitting right there. I don't even use a mic because I've never really thought about doing this with a budget and having real equipment and doing real editing and stuff. So as I evolve into that, I hope I don't lose anybody. So anyway, he opened it the next day, but then sold the store to his manager shortly thereafter. And then the store just got raided until it went out of business. Emery's seed business was raided again at its office location on April 30th, 1998, and Emery was charged with selling marijuana seeds. Another raid on September 2nd, 1998. Saw Emery jailed overnight again and his seeds confiscated. But no charges were laid. He was convicted from the April raid in 1999 and given a $2,000 fine. In August 1998, Vancouver Mayor Philip Owen had told the New York Times that hemp BC was going to be toast by September. I love it when people say that. Like Bill Clinton, you're going to be toast by Election Day. Alright, court documents showed that 4 American Navy undercover agents attempted to buy marijuana and smoke it at a cannabis cafe. At the Cannabis Cafe. The documents showed that the Naval Criminal Investigation Service agents worked in a joint operation with Vancouver police in 1998, in April. After the 2 raids, he switched his walk-in marijuana seed business to mail order only and continued to publish Cannabis Culture magazine. In early 2000, he was expanding again with the establishment of Pot TV, a marijuana-related video channel. In November of 2002, the then U.S. drug czar John Walters visited Vancouver to give a speech at a luncheon sponsored by the Vancouver Board of Trade. Emery bought a table for himself and another local cannabis activist and heckled Walters as he spoke about the need for Canada to embrace the war on drugs. And this was in 2002, remember. From 1998 until his arrest in 2005, Emery paid provincial and federal taxes as a marijuana seed vendor totaling nearly $600,000. That's just the taxes he paid from selling seeds. Emery has described himself as a major financial backer of almost every pro-pot effort in North America and many more around the world. He claims that he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in election campaigning for the Canadian Marijuana Party, BC Marijuana Party, and the Vancouver Marijuana Party. He also claims to have funded numerous marijuana activist groups, paid for several major legal challenges to aspects of Canada's cannabis law, and made large donations to various pro-pot ballot initiatives in the United States, such as California, Nevada, Alaska, Arizona, plus financially backed pro-cannabis activities in New Zealand, Australia, Russia, and elsewhere around the world. So he didn't just take that pile of money and ride off into the sunset then, and he wasn't planning on doing it now. Now, 2004 trafficking conviction. On August 19th, 2004, Emery was sentenced to 92 days in jail in Saskatoon. Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. You get it. You know what I'm talking about. Emery had been convicted of trafficking because a witness saw him pass a joint in March 2004. That's some serious trafficking there, man. Emery's supporters held on to an ongoing daily vigil outside the courthouse until he was released. On October 18th, he was released from Saskatoon Correctional Center after serving 61 days of his sentence. On July 2005, arrest and extradition. Here we go. This is where he went from pretty famous to household name. 2005 arrest and extradition. In July 29, 2005, Canadian police, acting on a request from the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, simultaneously raided the BC Marijuana Party bookstore and headquarters in Vancouver and arrested Emery for extradition to the United States outside a local storefront in the community of Lawrencetown, Nova Scotia, where he was attending a hemp fest. American authorities charged Emery and co-defendants Gregory Keith Williams, 50, of Vancouver, BC, and Michelle Rainey Fenkerik, 34, of Vancouver, BC, with conspiracy to distribute marijuana. Conspiracy to distribute marijuana seeds, and conspiracy to engage in money laundering. Even though all the alleged offenses occurred in Canada, Canadian police did not lay any charges. The day of Emery's arrest, American DEA agent Karen Tandy released the following statement. Today's DEA arrested Marc Emery, publisher of Cannabis Culture magazine and the founder of Marijuana Legalization Group. It is a significant blow not only to the marijuana trafficking trade in the U.S. and Canada, but also the marijuana legalization movement. His marijuana trade and propagandist Marijuana magazine has generated nearly $5 million a year in profits that bolstered his trafficking efforts, but those have gone up in smoke today. Don't you love how everybody that wants to make marijuana illegal, or the stupid mainstream news reporters that want to still keep it in reefer madness mode, always joke around it and make little funny jokes about munchies and how everything's going up in smoke or going to pot. You know, the funny thing is you guys are just acting like little immature idiots, you know? Like, what the fuck is that? It's going up in smoke. That's funny why you gotta go to prison over there. Is that funny? Did anybody laugh at that? You're being fucking stupid. Like little kids. There ain't nothing smart about that. There ain't nothing intelligent about joking around about somebody's fate like that. Emery and his organization had been designated as one of the Attorney General's most wanted international drug trafficking organization targets. Huh? For selling fucking seeds? One of only 46 in the world, and the only one from Canada. Because, you know, there ain't too many people in Canada that run around chopping heads off over marijuana. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of Emery's illicit profits are known to have been channeled to marijuana legalization groups active in the United States and Canada. Drug legalization lobbyists have now have one less pot of money to rely on. There she goes again with that fucking no, pun intended. Definitely, we know the pun was intended, and it's stupid. It really it's just it's fucking ignorant. You know, Marc Emery is a very smart person who knows that there's a demand for marijuana seeds. At the time he was doing it, there wasn't very many people doing it. And there's a lot of people growing marijuana. All of a sudden you got, you know, you're selling so many seeds that the DEA thinks that you're a threat. Because there's people growing your seeds into plants all over the world. And, you know, just like the FBI back in the day with the Black Panthers and the, you know, and even the civil rights movement in general, you know, just like that, you have the DEA now acting like, you know, they can do whatever the fuck they want, and it's just ridiculous, and say whatever they want, and over marijuana, man. They're losing power, and it's really sad. Emery was freed on a $50,000 bail and prepared to fight extradition in the courts. International protests and rallies. On September 10th, 2005, about 7 weeks after Emery's arrest, over 40 demonstrations were held around the world to protest his impending extradition to the United States. Locations included Moscow, Prague, Wellington, Sydney, Mexico City, Paris, and London. On September 19th, 2009, rallies were held in over 100 cities around the world to support Marc Emery in opposition to his extradition to the USA. Locations included New York, London, Paris, Edmonton, Oslo, Lima, Cape Town, Copenhagen, Houston, and many more. On May 22, 2010, rallies and protests in support of Marc Emery were held in over 80 cities representing a dozen countries. Nations with rallies included Australia, Germany, Sweden, Norway, the Philippines, Denmark, and Ireland. There were 40 participating cities across Canada and another 24 across the USA worldwide support Marc Emery rallies in September 18th, 2012 in 80 cities. Yeah, there was a lot of rallies. It was one of the biggest things that it's ever happened to somebody in the marijuana in general industry, I guess. I mean, as far as like attention and rallies go. All right, Emery and his two associates, all charged in the United States with drug and money laundering offenses, Each faced a minimum 10-year sentence with the possibility of life imprisonment if convicted there. On January 14, 2008, Emery had agreed to a tentative plea bargain with the U.S. authorities. The terms of the agreement were a 5-year prison term to be served in both Canadian and U.S. prisons. In return, he demanded the charges against his friends Michelle Rainey and Greg Williams be dropped. On March 27, 2008, the plea bargain deal collapsed because of the refusal of the Canadian Conservative government to approve its side of the arrangement. In late 2008, an extradition hearing was scheduled for June 2009. However, before those hearings, Emery agreed to plead guilty to one charge of distribution and accept a 5-year sentence in the USA. On September 21, 2009, Emery entered a plea of guilty. On September 28th, he was incarcerated in British Columbia prison awaiting extradition to the U.S. federal prison to serve his 5-year sentence. There is a 30-day appeal period before extradition. Emery was granted bail on November 18th after 7 weeks in a pretrial center to await the Justice Minister's decision on the extradition order. While Emery was in prison, his supporters held a continuous vigil outside the prison with tents and banners for 45 days, ending when Emery was released on bail. On September 10, 2010, Emery was sentenced to 5 years in prison minus time served. On April 2011, Emery was held by the Federal Bureau of Prisons at the D. Ray James Correctional Institution in Folkston, Georgia. On April 20, 2011, Emery was transferred to Yazoo City Prison in Mississippi. On June 30, 2014, Emery announced his pending release in a blog post on the Cannabis Culture website. His sentence was originally for 5 years, and he earned 235 days of credit for good conduct while incarcerated. His criminal sentence officially ended on July 9th. On Thursday, July 10th, U.S. Immigration picks him up and takes him to a private for-profit GEO Group LaSalle detention facility in Jena, Louisiana, where he will be processed for deportation back to Canada. Then he will be flown to Detroit, Michigan, and then transported across the border into Windsor, which is on the exact opposite side of the universe from Vancouver, where he lives. So there's the history of Marc Emery and his battle with the anti-marijuana forces of Canada and America. So if anybody just throws salt his way because of this stunt he pulled, make sure that they know who they're fucking talking about, alright? Marc Emery ain't no fucking joke. And it ain't like the guy just takes the money and buys hookers and coke. He's a very respectable man. He does nothing but fight the good fight. And I got nothing but respect for him. I remember when he got released from U.S. prisons in 2014. That was a day of celebration for me. And I'll tell you what, man. It'll be another day of celebration when all this trouble from this incident is over. But I think what he did needed to be done, you know, and nobody else is going to step up and do it. So that's all I got on this story. I'll keep you up on anything new that comes out of it, as usual. If you like what I'm doing, go ahead and hit that button, and then go ahead and subscribe, because there's a lot of shit coming our way in the next few months here with this new administration coming in. You know, and I hear you, people. Like, you people in the comment section, or people on Twitter or wherever they're talking about. I say stuff about right-wingers all the time, and I'm not really talking about the voters. I'm talking about the politicians, all right? The right-wingers, when I say that, I'm talking about the politicians. And if you think that they fucking are there to do anything for legalizing marijuana, you bumped your head, or you were never paying attention anyway. So if you are one of these people that are watching my channel and you're like, man, this guy talks about right-wingers and Republicans this and conservative that, like he hates us. Well, I don't hate people. I don't hate anybody. But what I do hate is this propaganda machine that's kept marijuana illegal the whole time through. And it's been the right-wingers that have been pushing it. They've been pushing the prohibition. And then one of the arguments were, well, what, you know, you guys have been around. Obama had the White House for 8 years. He didn't do anything. Hey, man, I covered that. I got a whole 2-video thing that I just did like a couple weeks ago. Check it out, man. I'm not carrying no water for Obama over here talking about legalizing marijuana, because guess what? he really didn't do anything to legalize marijuana. He took the hands-off approach, all right, and that's what happened. They took their hands off and nothing happened. All right, that's all I got. Like, subscribe, peace.